Marriage Story is written, directed, and produced by Noah Baumbach and stars Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson as this married couple who are going through a divorce. And the film also showcases their legal battle while they also don't... I hate those lights. While they don't want to, they don't want the divorce to end up destroying their family since they have a child together. As with my other catch-ups for this year's Best Picture nominees, or Best Picture Oscar nominees, I won't spend too much time on this intro, but if you've seen my top 10 favorite films of 2019, then you already know this was in the #1 spot for last year. I've watched Marriage Story way too many times over the past couple of months, and just viewing it again to prepare for this video just gave me another reason to watch it. And, you know, even though it hurts every single time to watch it. Now, before I get into my thoughts on the film, I first want to remind you guys to hit that like button and to hit that subscribe button, especially that button if you're not a subscriber. Please help me with this channel. Wow, that was a little too grovelly. Anyway, and also a short disclaimer for those of you who are new, I use a pro and con setup for my reviews, but I usually don't keep the sections separate, but sometimes I do. I don't know, we'll see how the overall product ends. Hell, I may not even do a pro and con sort of thing for this one. I'll think about it once we actually get into the editing portion. But anyway, there's your disclaimer. Let's go ahead and get into my review of Marriage Story. So I have to preface this first point with something that I've mentioned before in previous videos. Even though I, like everyone else, pegged Joaquin Phoenix to be the be-all and end-all winner for the Best Actor this year, I was upfront about how I felt that there could be an upset, and that's because I had seen Marriage Story. And along with that, even though I knew as well that Renee Zellweger was going to win for Best Actress, I had changed my mind and thought maybe there would be an upset because, again, I had seen Marriage Story. Driver and Johansson give what are perhaps among the best performances I have ever seen. And I hadn't felt about a specific performance or any specific performances on that level in so long. Not since Daniel Day-Lewis did his Oscar-winning turn as Abraham Lincoln in Spielberg's Lincoln. But both are asked to give powerhouse and yet subtle performances at the same time, and never get anywhere close to around non-reality. Unlike another film that needs to be mentioned, Kramer vs. Kramer, there's no villain in the story, unless you count the divorce lawyers, but that's a separate thing altogether that I'll get into later. In that film, there's a definite side. Kramer vs. Kramer was the first film about divorce that took the side of the male spouse, and even since then, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's balanced as far as which side the film follows, or if it's still primarily women, but pretty much every single film about divorce focuses on a side, and Marriage Story doesn't. Baumbach shows both the good and the bad of both characters, showing that they're just flawed human beings like the rest of us. There will be times where you will root for each individual character, but then you also feel contempt towards both, depending on what's happening in the story. But really, what the film focuses on is the state of mind that both the characters in, with Johansson's screen time focusing on her, on just letting her air her grievances and let her tell her side of her story and, you know, just basically say, like, you know, I want to take control of my life, while Driver's screen time focuses on how the divorce is tearing them apart psychologically and emotionally. Both characters get their focus in the story, and we get to see how each of them are affected by their marriage, or at least how they were by their marriage, and how they're being affected by this impending divorce. And there are even times of catharsis given for the characters that are kind of strange, that play into that emotional turmoil. And I say strange in the way that most directors would probably not make these kind of choices, especially involving singing, which was strange. And no, I'm not saying that this is a musical. Just watch the film and you'll understand. And everything from those last couple of points just show how well the characters are written, and that's a big part of the overall screenplay from Baumbach, which also stresses the ideas of open communication. Now, does the film suggest that if these two had talked about their issues, maybe they wouldn't have a divorce? Yes and no. Maybe it would have, but at the same time, there are moments in the discussions with each other and others that there are differences in perception between the two characters. One of them could see a topic of conversation as a plan for the future, while the other just sees it as a hypothetical that is in no way supposed to be something that you actually think about, that it could actually happen. Once again, showcasing how complex relationships and people are. But really what makes this film stand out from a normal film focusing on divorce is the fact that it is filmed like a love story, just told from one specific part of that story, the end of the love story. And this is stressed in how many callbacks there are to things about each other that they've loved and probably still love. And this is important because it reminds it reminds the audience that these are just two people who did love each other. We're not solely focusing on any vitriol that's between them, or not between them, nothing like that. So we don't get consistent scenes of major arguments, or really any, save one, the big scene, the one that you've probably already heard about, but seeing it rather than just hearing about it is where the scene becomes masterful. Everything from the simplistic and symmetrical cinematography, the set design, and just simply where the characters are in relation to each other as the fight is going on illustrate to us and symbolize their mental states, as well as how open they are being about their individual stress levels in the moment. And it doesn't hurt that these are masterful performances. That just adds to what is already great about the scene. The story also takes inspiration from some thrillers, kind of, taking that, the story of a crime taking place and the ensuing fallout afterwards, taking inspiration from that. Little things that can become big pieces of evidence during a police investigation, or things that'll be used later in a trial, which is appropriate here since there is a lot of trial in this thing with the divorce proceedings and everything. But like how small details from earlier will be brought back up to further the plot, we see this in Marriage Story whenever the divorce lawyers finally become involved. The film begins with both characters stating what they love about each other. But as the film goes on, things slowly unfold about their marriage before, during, and slightly after. And also moments since they decided to divorce. And we see the lawyers twist their conflicting narratives about where they viewed their family, how they viewed their family, and they utilize these small details in order to win, because that's pretty much it. It is the winner takes it all sort of mentality. And I mentioned earlier that while there are no concrete villains in the film, if you had to choose any antagonists or an antagonistic force, it would be the divorce lawyers and or the divorce legal system itself, a bureaucratic system that thrives on showcasing people at their worst. Even though the duo try to get through the divorce in a cordial and personal way, not involving lawyers in the beginning, and we do end up finding that there is no way for a clean divorce in that sense, even if you hadn't brought lawyers in the first place. We start off much of the film blaming these lawyers and this system, although there is no argument that these divorce lawyers are shitty people in general. But when the system rewards this kind of behavior, is it even really their fault? Because probably most of them came in with a more altruistic sense, and there's even a character in there who is a lawyer who actually treats both of them like people, and the character who actually uses them as a lawyer ends up having to fire them in the long run because he'll have no chance in the overall system with that kind of representation. So then they have to basically, and I quote, they needed their own asshole. But honestly, with the flaws coming back to bite both of the lead characters in the ass, just really stresses the reality that in these times, parents will probably look bad anyway when put under such a big microscope, and both leads flourish only after they acknowledge the issues in person rather than focusing on others to actually do it for them in a courtroom setting. So I know I could talk about this film all day, but sadly I would get into spoilers, and I don't really want to do that. Also, to me, the last little bit, I did start improving a little bit. I think some of it started sounding a bit like a lecture and not necessarily a critique on the film. So I'm gonna go into my outro right here, but if anything, I want to get the word out to more people about this film. It's a Netflix film, so there's definitely no excuse for people to not check it out. And also, you should be self-isolating right now anyway, no matter where you are. But all in all, I would argue that Marriage Story is Netflix's masterpiece film, and this was my personal pick to win Best Picture this year. Obviously, it didn't win, but I personally think it should have. It has two career best, generation defining performances from Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, and simplistic yet exceptional filmmaking and writing that deserves to be seen. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, don't forget to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And for one of my next videos, I'm hoping to get this out soon. I just have one more catch-up for the Best Picture nominees, and it will actually be the film that won, and I'm also looking forward to that one. I was looking a little bit more forward to talking about this one because it was my favorite film of last year, but I'm also looking forward to the next one. Hopefully I can get that one out soon. But anyway, farewell until the next video, all of you casual moviegoers and movie fans alike, and keep on being awesome.